Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're looking at Miscellaneous Myths by Overly Sarcastic Production. This is going to be Nerites, the 5 sons, and Io. Now, Io I know is Zeus getting freaky and turning someone into a bull, so Zeus story, standard. The 5 sons, I think, might be something about the Aztec era. Well, I can't speak to Aztec eras, but that's literally the most I know about it, and frankly, I could be completely off base there. And the Nerites, I think it's Greek. More importantly, though, we're going to find out, and that is actually really exciting. So we're going to do that. You guys know the deal. Link below, video. Hit it up. Let's get started.
So I think most people would agree that it's a bad idea to date most Greek gods.
Yes.
There's just so much drama,
Really
so many
only went well
complicated
once.
family feuds, and the odds of you getting vaporized, shot, or turning into a plant are pretty astronomical. The
More
threat
than once
is
is too
somewhat
much.
reduced if you happen to be a deity yourself, but even with that precaution, it's probably a good idea to steer clear of the more risky deities, like Aphrodite, who classifies everything anyone's ever done as either flirtation or deadly personal insult, or Poseidon, who...
Then there's a bunch that were both, so yeah. Honestly, unless you're Hades, and, you know, that's really only Persephone. Was there anyone other than Persephone before her? Huh. Maybe it'll be covered in a different video.
wouldn't recognize consent if it jumped up and bit him in the trident.
Yeah.
So let me introduce you to Nerites, a minor ocean deity and absolute madman whose only claim to fame is that, depending on the narrator, he dated both Aphrodite and Poseidon and actually survived.
They can do that? One, I thought Nerites was female just because the R, I assume, was more of a feminine noun in gendered languages, but that could be my bias just for the very small amount of gendered languages I know in Spanish. And considering I failed Spanish, I probably shouldn't rely on that.
So, much like the story of Narcissus, who exactly Nerites is in love with varies from telling to telling. There's 2 versions of the story, one where the SO in question is Aphrodite, and the other where it's Poseidon. We'll talk about both versions in this video, but first we gotta talk about Nerites. Now, the 2 main things about Nerites...
Super cute. Doris, mother of Nerites. Nares, the old man of the sea. Wait, old man of the sea is actually a name? Oh, I guess that's a apocryphal title then.
This is that, number 1, he's the beautiful son of Nares and the sea nymph Doris, and...
Oh. Mermaid. Yeah, or merman.
Number 2, he's young. Like, really young. In the ancient Greek world, this was a thing called pederasty, where adult men would have sexual relationships with adolescent boys, in an alleged effort to teach them how to be men. In the modern world, this is known as pedophilia, and it is...
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. You know, I could have gone without remember that, but I remember now, and I don't like it.
Very not okay. However, Nerites is also an immortal god. So he's kind of more like the ancient Greek male equivalent of those prepubescent anime girls who are actually 1,000-year-old dragons or elves or whatever.
Oh, Crom? Who's Crom? You don't have to worry. I'm a dragon. I'm over 1,000 years old. I just look like a pubescent child, or prepubescent child. It's a weird game. Looks like JRPG, and it mentions dragons. Fire Emblem? Probably Fire Emblem. They had a lot of weird stuff.
Whatever, so it's really okay that we're using them for so much fan service, you guys. So if that makes you feel better about these romances, that's cool, I guess.
I'm going to take it, because otherwise this video gets a lot creepier.
It's always fun when a story from another time and place really drives home how different that society was by smacking you in the face with some hardcore moral dissonance. Anyway.
I do not want to be slapped in the face by anything morally dissonant. Let's just leave unsaid what I was going to put in there, because it really doesn't get any better. It really doesn't.
Anyway, moving on to the actual stories. Don't get comfy, they're pretty short.
Oh, Nares and Aphrodite.
So, in this version of the myth, Aphrodite, before she rises from the ocean, drifts to the shores of Hera, and becomes an Olympian god, is spent...
Wait, before? Oh. So does that mean the baby god is hitting on someone who wasn't even born yet? Huh. When the baby is the cradle robber. This feels weird.
Spending her days chilling under the sea when she meets and falls in love with Nerites, and the 2 of them carry on a vague but probably adorable whirlwind romance. But eventually Aphrodite decides to leave the ocean, and she asks Nerites to come with her. But Nerites doesn't really want to leave the ocean, since that...
Sorry, I don't think I'm ready for that kind of commitment. Huh. You know, I kind of wish this played more into her lore in general, just because the idea that before she became Aphrodite, she was initially dumped by a hot kid.
Would mean leaving his family behind, and even when Aphrodite offers him a nice pair of wings, he refuses. So Aphrodite, with her character...
If only there was a joke in here about fish flying.
level-headedness in the face of rejection,
Oh, no.
turns Nerites into a shrimp, gives the wings to her son Eros, and takes off for Olympus. But if you were
What a shrimp.
expecting this story to have a classic Greek tragedy ending, think again.
What?
Nerites' sorry state is discovered
Oh.
by his sister Neria, who begs Poseidon to reverse his shellfish condition, which Poseidon does.
Really?
Happy ending, I guess.
Wait. Poseidon is allowed to actually be helpful? Considering this is also him and Poseidon, that's definitely going to change things unless they switch it off for Aphrodite helping. That would be a twist. Either way, it's a twist.
In the other main version of this myth, Poseidon and Nerites have been carrying on a pretty sweet romance, and in
Do I need to say anything about Poseidon having Nerites check out his long wood in branch? I don't? Good. It would be way too on the nose.
fact are so in love with each other that their mutually supportive relationship produces a whole entire deity,
What?
and Teros, the god of requited love. Nerites also serves as Poseidon's charioteer and wows all the creatures of the ocean with his impressive speed and skill. But
Wow.
one day, the sun god Helios, for unspecified reasons, turns Nerites into a shrimp. Maybe he was jealous? Either way, Neria finds Nerites, asks Poseidon to turn him back, and he does. Happy ending. For extra
Huh. So Poseidon helps in both versions. I wonder if one of them came up before Aphrodite became the bigger deity throughout the Hellenistic Greek period, because it seems almost like a change in there. Or would one be more predominant in areas where Aphrodite wasn't really worshipped? That'd be really interesting to find out if they're time period based or location based and which one is which. That should be fascinating. I know I've been told Blue does this kind of in-depth analysis of how things break down like that. And honestly, I should probably go check out his stuff. That sounds absolutely fascinating to me.
comedy points, I like to imagine that both versions of the myth happen sequentially, and Nerites just gets turned into a shrimp for various reasons, like
Hermes, did you steal the remote? Did I? Robs, shrimp. At some point, there's just like a turn Nerites back from a shrimp into a merman. Get a free Sunday. Poseidon's probably getting that card clicked all the time.
every other week. I don't think we appreciate the sun enough, and I say this as someone who gets
What?
sunburns from Hubble pics and people with unusually shiny teeth.
I mean, I'm not that bad, but I mean, I have the gamer tan. As in, this is actually as tan as I get. There's a reason I'm a gamer. Mostly because I'm lazy and really like playing games I suck at. That's a horrible reason now that I think about it. I'm going to ignore that fact.
have every reason to hate the sun, but really, I think we take it for granted these days. Ever since we figured out that solar eclipses didn't mean the sun was literally getting eaten by a giant snake, we've kind of stopped worrying about it, and I think that's a shame.
Some people did. Some people stopped worrying about it. Others still freak out. It is actually kind of funny as long as they're not within actual spitting distance, because sometimes when they say spitting mad, they mean that literally, and it just... Ugh. You don't know what's in their teeth, but you're assuming it's probably contagious somehow.
Because some of my absolute favorite myths are about what happens when the sun stops working.
Oh.
But while many mythologies have designated
The myth of Heracles, who fired arrows at Helios. Whoa. He's just going, ah.
sun gods and or the occasional myth where the sun
Amaterasu lured from her self-imposed exile by the goddess of beauty stripping for her. Yeah, Japanese myth. Hot girl. It fixes everything. Frankly, I would love to see Red reanimate this one because her art style changing is kind of fascinating.
is threatened but ultimately saved, I think the Aztec creation myth has my favorite take on the
Oh, it
subject.
was Aztec.
So let's take a
Nice.
look at what history's most notoriously bloody mythos has to say on the subject of sun.
Is Aztec really the most bloody? I mean, there's been a few that are very, very, let's murder everything. Although, now that I think about it, no, the Welsh were pretty peaceful, oddly enough, and really kind of cool. The African myths that I've seen so far from Red, they have been absolutely some of the most chill and actual morality plays that show good people making decisions. Maybe not always the best decision, but, you know, doing things and getting better. Actually, it's really just the Greek ones. And even those, the bloody stuff was more karmic fuckery rather than actual dying. Even then, the dying was just individual people. Yeah, I guess the actual apocalyptic thing is only rivaled by Ragnarok and the Norse myths. And frankly, up until then, it wasn't that bloody. Where everything Aztec so far, from the little I've seen, happens to be, hey, and then everyone dies.
The Aztec creation myth begins when Ometeotl, a primordial dual god that may or may not have ever actually been worshipped, spontaneously creates himself and
Oh, that's why they're saying may or may not have been worshipped, because they're only slightly filled in. So there's primordial, there's the duality, the two different colors. But because they're not entirely certain, they left a bit of the JPEG transparency behind as a texture. Really nice way to include the colorization as the actual way to indicate what may or may not be.
Promptly spoots out 4 gods to start filling out the pantheon. These 4 gods are associated with the cardinal directions as well as the colors white, blue, red, and black. They're sometimes referred to as the 4 Tezcatlipoca.
You just add green in there and you basically have a Magic the Gathering color wheel. I see it everywhere. I have a problem. This is on me.
Which is a bit confusing because only one of them is actually named Tezcatlipoca.
Oh.
The other 3 are Xipetotec and 2 more familiar Aztec deities, Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli. Quetzalcoatl, the white Tezcatlipoca, is the god of the winds, the west, knowledge, learning, art, and the planet Venus. His name
And if you're a fan of FGO, wrestling.
means feathered serpent, which is usually how he's represented in the art. Huitzilopochtli, the blue Tezcatlipoca, is the god of the south, along with war and human sacrifice, and his name means hummingbird of the south. Xipetotec, the red Tezcatlipoca.
Okay. God damn it, Red. That is literally the absolute most disturbing art I have ever seen you do. I mean, I have seen some of her holiday stuff for Halloween specifically, and they were like going all out and the warp spasms and just the grotesquity. And this is literally skin being pulled off. How long ago was this? 4 years ago. This must be newer because that is a disturbing amount. You can see the straining mark and it's just, and then the regular down there and the knife still. It's impressive, but god damn. And of course, it's the flayed lord.
Is the god of the east, along with agriculture, farming, springtime, and disease, with his name meaning our lord the flayed one, which might be why he's red. Anyway, rounding out our roster is Tezcatlipoca, redundantly called the black Tezcatlipoca, who's the god of the night sky, hurricanes, obsidian, chaos, conflict, and jaguars. His name means smoking mirror, which is cool as hell. So these 4 gods do what gods do.
I'm telling you, we need more big cats. Only if they stop eating all my humans. And then the 2 are down. They're just going like, sup. And they're wearing flesh. It's wearing a flesh mask.
Best and start trying to make stuff. But the problem is, right now the universe is just this big empty void.
Infinite Primordial Ocean. Infinite Nightmare Beast. Oh, it looks like something out of Cthulhu, actually. Like the mythos in general, with all the teeth and just a small head. Appendages that are mouths, that are teeth, that are horns, that are tails, that are also claws, and an infinite primordial void. That is terrifying.
Hovering over primordial ocean that's home to Cipactli, a giant monster crocodile eldritch abomination thing with big old crocodile mouths on every joint of its body.
Cipactli.
I'm picturing a Jacob's ladder made of nightmares. And whenever they make anything, it falls into the ocean and Cipactli eats it. So Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl come up with a plan that'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Tezcatlipoca lures Cipactli to the surface, incidentally losing a leg in the process, and the 4 gods catch and kill it, then repurpose its nightmare bear trap body into the land. However, Cipactli is only kinda dead, so in order to keep it happy, the gods promise it regular blood
Stop that. We'll feed you. Oh my god.
sacrifices so it won't eat their stuff anymore. So yeah, in the Aztec cosmology, the Earth itself is a starving primeval monster that wants nothing more than to eat everything at all times. Let's find.
And yeah, they definitely overlaid the Cthulhu mythos teeth everywhere thing here. And it is very fitting because the more I learn about Aztec mythos, well, for one, the Freudian slip of Aztec mythos seems completely accurate. At what point does a Freudian slip become an accurate statement of fact? I don't know, but I think I've reached that point.
Times. Let's file that under yikes and move on. So now they've got some land to work with, and the gods get to work making a bunch more gods, plus some humans. Although these humans are giant for some reason. Anyway, that's all cool and stuff, but
the sky is too boring. Yeah. Oh, and originally they were stepping stones for the pyramids they made. That's actually a cool little detail.
this new world is missing something. It needs a sun. So Tezcatlipoca decides to give it a shot. He becomes the sun, but for some reason, either due to the loss of his leg or the fact that he's a god of the night, he can only manage half a sun. But that works fine, and things go all right for a while. But over time, Tezcatlipoca...
Personally, I think the midichlorians deepen the lore in a compelling way. Gasp. You take that back. Never. I just realized they're talking about Star Wars. You know, there's even a god of memes in the African lore that would make that argument. It would make perfect sense. But this is just painful. Midichlorians, if you take them as the creation of the Force, it's a bitch. But if you take them as an indication that they have Force, it's not nearly as painful. I'm getting stuck on a Star Wars rant, aren't I? Red, you know what you did there. At least you have the appropriate response.
Develops a bit of a rivalry with Quetzalcoatl, and one day Quetzalcoatl whacks him out of the sky with a big stone club for some reason. Tezcatlipoca takes this so badly that he calls down a rain of jaguars to eat everybody, and then...
I've heard of raining cats and dogs, but that's actually a mythology? Mythology, well, I can't speak today. Mythology. meow, 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 meow. I just realized they're all falling. She put them at every angle, and the ones near the ground are all on their feet. Except for this one. That one's going to be screwed.
That's how the first world ends. So, with humanity extinct and Tezcatlipoca
Oh, they're literally scraping the blood off because they ate everyone with jaguars.
thoroughly unfit for duty, Quetzalcoatl steps up to the plate and becomes the second son, after the gods whip up some new humans. Smaller this time, probably so they leave less of a mess. Now, Quetzalcoatl loves these new humans, but over time they stop being quite as respectful to the gods as maybe they could be.
That's less cute. Ooh, that's a new obscene gesture. I'm going to use that. Oh my god. Oh, it's the butt. They're doing the butt and the middle finger. Oh god. And is that guy... What is that? Oh, they're drinking while on the side of the pyramid.
And they maybe start taking them a little for granted. And who
Tezcatlipoca is more like Tezcatlipoca Loca. Oh, that is it. They caused a second end to the world. It's interesting because in the previous video, there was a lot of mentions of, and this is when Quetzalcoatl was born. At least I'm pretty sure that's the correct date. I might be mistaken. But then there's actually no recognition of when the god himself was born, just that he was so famous no one needed to say it. It's kind of fascinating how they're one of the earlier variations.
should take offense to this but Tezcatlipoca, who punishes the wayward humans by transforming them all into monkeys. Quetzalcoatl is so upset.
Aw, you ruined them. Nah, I showed them. And that's why monkeys are assholes. I mean, could be worse. It could be on Twitter.
About the loss of his humans that he blows all the monkeys off the face of the earth and goes home to sulk.
Oh, well, okay, so Quetzalcoatl did it this time. No, this sucks. I'm going home.
Well, time for son number 3, I guess. Quetzalcoatl makes some more humans, and Plock, a rain god, becomes the
supreme rain god associated with mountains, caves, and storms. As the sun. Odd choice, but okay.
third son. And he does a pretty good job for a while, until Tezcatlipoca seduces Tlaloc.
Hey, man. 2 invested in this marriage, right? Oh, God, they stole
Tlaloc wife, the fertility goddess Xochiquetzal, and Tlaloc gets so upset that he refuses to let it rain at all. After a while,
oh, actually, this would be kind of fascinating if this is specifically an aspect of showing a drought term in ancient mythology. See, I know this is, again, something Blue would probably go on more, but do these cycles actually relate to various natural events that happen within the time period that people were there to make stories about them, or are they just apocryphal and then adapted into mythology? I don't know, but ideas like drought specifically have massive implications and have destroyed multiple cities throughout human history and multiple current cities that are being actively destroyed by not having water.
the desperate prayers of humanity start getting on his nerves, so Tlaloc is like, oh, you want rain? I'll give you rain.
Drought
and then
followed
sets
by
off a
rain
rain
and
of
fire.
fire, burning the entire world to the ground and wiping out everything again. You know that's not what they were asking for. Come on, man. Well, Tlaloc steps down as the son and remarries.
I might have overreacted. It's okay. I'm not going to try and say that. She of the jade skirt, goddess of rivers, streams, storms, fertility, childbirth, seen as a life and death god. Huh. Odd mixer, but okay.
This time to the water goddess Xalchutlicue, who also steps up to become the fourth son. Now, Xalchutlicue is a total sweetheart and dotes on her new humans, but here, take a guess who screws this up. Yep, our old buddy Tezcatlipoca.
Look at them adulting. Bet that makes them cheerful act worth it. The cheerful act?
Accuses Xalchutlicue of being a total poser who's only pretending to like those humans so they worship her. This cutting accusation is so hurtful.
No, really, it's impressive. I'm a terrible liar. I can never keep that up for long. But I'm not. And
that Xalchutlicue cries blood for 52 years and drowns everybody. But at this point,
Damn.
Quetzalcoatl is getting real sick of having to build new humans every few years, so instead of starting from scratch,
They've had a rain of fire, they've had a rain of jaguars, they've had a rain of blood. You know, you think the jaguars would precede the rain of blood, which happened, but they didn't come directly after it. They just get rains of everything.
Stomps down to the underworld, steals the bones of all those dead humans from the underworld god Mictlantecuhtli, and stomps right back up
Taking
again.
your stuff.
But not before he trips, falls in a hole, and breaks all the bones. Don't
If only I could fly. Sure, underworld, why not?
worry, it doesn't do anything bad, but this is used to explain why people come in different heights now. Anyway, Quetzalcoatl dips the bones in his blood, and the humans all come back to life, and enter the world of the fifth and current son, staffed by Huitzilopochtli. And while according to the mythos he hasn't screwed up yet, he's in constant conflict with the moon coil.
Your time has come, brother. Don't make me find a way to dismember you again. Oh, find a way. I thought they were going full Elon Musk there.
Xalqui and the stars, who are also scary skeleton ladies called the Tzitzimime. The Aztecs believed
The stars were skeleton ladies? That is both terrifying, and I'm absolutely certain there was an entire sect of people who were like, skeleton ladies in the night sky. Oh, yeah. Because it's people. If the internet has proven one thing, there's always at least one.
That the world of the fifth sun would end in a catastrophic earthquake. So I guess, California, quit trying to fall into the ocean.
It could be worse. I mean, raining fire actually has happened plenty of times with various asteroids, meteorites, and incredibly large volcanic explosions that did put up a lot of dust clouds. I wonder how early these myths were, because there were a few supervolcano eruptions that would have happened at the time. Well, maybe not supervolcano, but large volcanic eruptions. I wonder if those inspired some of these myths of raining fire specifically.
Ocean, and remember to pour one out for Sapakli once in a while. Blood sacrifices keep the planet from eating your feet.
And last up, we have Io. So going from everything is going to die horribly, people are literally being murdered off the face of the earth by a pleasant god having a crying fit and drowning people in her bloody tears. Yeah, that's still one of the more weird ways to go. And it's like, yeah, teased into murder. There's a joke in there, but I don't want to make it because this gets really dark. So we're going to move on to the next one, Io. You know, I just realized that the first one was dark because kid. Second one was dark because lots of dead people. Third one is going to be dark because it involves Zeus being Zeus. Not sure if that counts as dark or just constantly accurate.
So here's an interesting thing about Ovid. Despite being an
Ovid?
incredibly popular poet around the time of the
Ovid
0th
poet.
millennium, Ovid was exiled by Emperor Augustus
Really?
for somewhat unclear reasons that might have involved criticizing his controversial marriage laws and also banging his daughter, and perhaps
There are two different ways to interpret that. Controversial marriage laws and making fun of them. Okay, I guess he was doing some freaky stuff, or he didn't like the freaky stuff being done. And then marrying his daughter. Ovid's daughter or the emperor's daughter. One is creepy, and I'm not in Alabama enough to make it think that's a good thing yet. And I would like to keep it that way because that is further south than I am comfortable going. It's way too hot. I burn easily when I look at a picture of a fire. If I was actually in heat, it would be unpleasant. Or he married the emperor's daughter, in which case, good on him. 2, how is he still alive? Actually, because the daughter probably liked it then. It could go either way, and both are actually really fascinating. One is more fascinating, actually, and the other one is more, okay, ancient Greece.
because of this, Ovid's work has
Actually,
a
Augustus
very
might be
noticeable
wrong.
anti-authoritarian bent.
Screw
It's
this
hard to
guy.
spot unless you have access to the earlier versions of the myths he
Oh?
retells, but for example, maybe most notoriously, his telling of the story of Perseus and Medusa is wildly different than any prior citation
Really?
of Medusa's origins.
How is it
Rather
different?
famously, Ovid cites Medusa as a victim of 2 atrocities. First, her assault by Poseidon in the Temple of Athena, and second, her transformation by Athena into a horrifying monster.
But that's the version I thought that is most common, that she is the victim in this, turned into a monster that had to be slain. But maybe that's just because that's the version Red covered, and she wasn't played off that way as much to other people.
Punishment for being assaulted. This telling is so popular that to this day, people are still arguing over whether Athena did a cool feminist thing by making Medusa immune to being assaulted, or if she did an evil unfeminist thing by victim blaming her so hard her face turned inside out.
I mean, technically it's Greek mythology. You can do both at the same time. Mostly because them being dicks while trying to help is completely legitimate to how they actually behave. The only thing worse than having a god in ancient Greece mad at you is having one try and help.
This entire argument is dumb because Ovid made it up. Right up until the Metamorphosis
Really?
was published, Gorgon Medusa was characterized as a bona fide monster from birth till death.
Oh.
One of 3 Gorgon sisters and the daughter of primordial ocean deities Phorcys and Ketel, who are also responsible for lovely individuals like Echidna, a giant snake woman whose primary claim to fame in the mythos is spawning off every monster ever by mating with the ancient Greek equivalent of Godzilla. So
Damn.
yeah, Medusa as tragic victim, nice piece
That was
of
brand
creative
new.
writing from Ovid,
Oh.
but really not based on anything. But
Oh, so Medusa was literally the fan fiction. Huh. Yeah, it's really kind of fascinating when you get these aspects right now. It's like the stories we think of as the classics are the equivalent of 50 Shades of Grey to Twilight. I've made that comparison before, but it becomes more and more accurate, and I'm not sure how to feel about that. But it kind of works in the most disturbing way possible. Let's not think about this too hard.
by providing Medusa with a backstory like that, he transforms the narrative from gods aid heroes in slaying monsters to gods toy with the lives of men, well, usually.
I mean, yeah, but also men. Like, they toyed with everyone. Everyone. Oh, granted, for the men, they usually just challenged them and then fucked them over, where the women were toyed with.
Women, actually, and wreak horrifying collateral damage as a consequence. And like I mentioned in the Arachne video, Athena's
Admittedly, this is still some of the best art I've seen her do. And it's still freaking cool, the level of detail in this.
Motives for turning Arachne into a spider are painted by Ovid as being distractingly selfish and jealous, which really doesn't jive with her broader characterization. In short, Ovid has a well-documented habit of playing up the tragedy of powerless mortals being jerked around and abused by an uncaring pantheon full of assholes, even when that doesn't necessarily jive with the source material.
And that probably was due to the fact that he was exiled, so the anti-authoritarian views are very much because authority fucked him over and he felt powerless, so he wrote his stories in a way that probably wouldn't get him immediately executed. I'm not writing this about you, Emperor, who has my life in their hands. I'm writing this about the gods, who could obviously smite me if they truly took offense. Are you doubting the gods could do that? I mean, I'm not going to say that level of blasphemy. That is probably an actual argument made and would make perfect sense.
He has to work with. But there's one flavor of Greek myth where Ovid's hot takes work really well, and that's every story where Zeus and Hera inadvertently conspire to ruin some poor woman's life. So today,
inadvertently? I thought they were very explicit. I mean, Zeus conspiring is more than I give him credit for, but Hera was very blatant about it.
Let's talk about Io and how she got stuck in the worst custody battle ever. So our story begins, as so many do, with a beautiful woman minding her own business when Zeus abruptly takes it into his head that she's the one true love of his life. When the woman in question, Io,
rejoice, mortal, for I have decreed that we shall bang. That's as close to the Dio voice as I can get. But I am trying to read this in the Dio voice, and in my head, it actually does fit. If my voice did, well, one, I'd be a lot more happy with that. But two, it does fit. It really does, when I'm not the one doing it.
As it turns out, sees the Lord of the Skies appear before her in a crackling blaze of divine glory and orders her to follow him into the dark, spooky woods so they can have sex. She does the smart thing and runs away before he finishes the elevator pitch. Unfortunately for Io, this doesn't do her much good, as Zeus conjures up a discreet cover of storm clouds and chases her down to... Discreet? Yeah. Yep. Real cool of you, Zeus. Yeah. But meanwhile, up in Olympus, Hera notices this suspicious mass of storm clouds covering up an otherwise innocuous patch of grease, and decides to check it out. What she finds is a very innocent-looking Zeus and a very unhappy cow. The cow is, unsurprisingly, Io, who Zeus has cunningly transformed in the hopes that Hera wouldn't possibly think he'd be having sex with an animal, because apparently Zeus has the self-awareness of a stump-tailed macaque.
Also, does anyone actually think for a second Zeus wouldn't? With all the times he's been an animal in his myths, if anything, it would probably be par for course at this point. Anyone who believes otherwise is intentionally doing so because the myth writer doesn't want to think about it.
Unfortunately for Zeus, Hera knows him a little too well, and upon observing the unhappy bovine, she declares it an absolutely beautiful cow, and kindly requests,
"Oh, Zeus, she's gorgeous, please, can I have her?" Ah, that poor bull.
That Zeus give it to her as a gift. Zeus, recognizing that denying his wife an extremely ordinary cow would look very suspicious, agrees, and Hera leads Io off to her pastures and places her under guard to make sure Zeus doesn't try any funny business.
Admittedly, it's horrible, but as far as Greek myths go, this is literally one of the least bad so far, if only because usually Zeus getting involved gets a lot worse than this.
The guard
Especially
in
Hera
question is
involved
Argus,
too.
A giant with 100 eyes and the power to only sleep with 2 of them at a time, letting him be constantly vigilant with the other 98. So Io is just to track down her father, the river god Inachus, and while she obviously can't talk, she
kicks Zeus in the smart cow.
Writes out her sorry condition in the dirt, and Inachus freaks out that this poor sad cow is his missing daughter. Argus leads Io away to graze on a distant mountain, but by this point Zeus is feeling really bad about Io's situation and can't help but feel the teensiest bit responsible for her.
Zeus can feel responsible? Sorry, this is actually something I didn't know he was capable of in any of his mythology, so I'm actually a bit surprised about this, that this would happen. I thought some other hero would be put up by the river god and just get away with it, and just like, sure, she doesn't need to be there, and if she's not there, Hera won't find out. Because that would actually be the way he'd think about it. But no, apparently, actually, he's about to fuck it up, isn't he? He's probably about to fuck it up even harder.
Her predicament, so he calls on Hermes and asks him to free Io from Argus's watch. So Hermes straps on his winged sandals, grabs his helmet, steals a herd of goats for the road, and pops down to earth disguised as a humble shepherd playing a sweet melody on some panpipes. Argus is intrigued by the instrument and invites the innocuous shepherd over to chat. After regaling him with...
So after she turned into reeds to escape Pan, he was like, well, we can still make some music. Oh yeah, because he turned the X into a pan flute in his Pan incarnation.
The long and boring tale of the panpipe's creation, Hermes gradually manages to lull Argus to sleep, and after using a little Caduceus magic to make sure he stays that way, Hermes seals the deal by cutting off Argus's head. But Hera is furious at Io for some reason. So after
Seriously? No, it's Hera. She's literally the god of misplaced anger.
Immortalizing Argus by placing his eyes on the tail of her peacock, she sends a fury after Io to relentlessly chase her down and torment her. Io is chased all over the Mediterranean, during which time she bumps into the captured Prometheus, who raises her spirits slightly by prophesying that
things will work out, and you see the fury gnawing on her butt. Literally, this is Homeward Bound mixed with the witches. Huh.
She'll return to her true form and also be the ancestress of the greatest hero of all time. And she also gives birth to a daughter in Thrace named Caroessa, who eventually goes on to have a son with Poseidon, who in turn goes on to found the city of Byzantium.
Oh.
Eventually, Io...
Byzantium? I guess maybe that was the way, but okay.
Io is driven to the banks of the Nile River, where she tips over, and Zeus begs Hera to let Io go.
Stop, I feel so bad. Well, I hope you learned your lesson. Oddly enough, he learned more than I expected. Did Hera's plan work? This is weird, but okay, sure. Apparently it did go exactly like she wanted.
Go and swears on the stakes that he won't try any more weird sex stuff with her. Hera relents, recalls the fury, and Io returns to her true human form. Io gets a lovely and well-earned happily ever after as she marries an Egyptian king, gives birth to a son named Epaphus, is widely worshipped as a god, and never...
Oh, I see what they did there. It's supposed to be the moon, but it looks like horns because, yeah, she just flips off Zeus.
Never has to deal with Zeus again. Also, Prometheus' prophecy comes true several generations down the line with the birth of Heracles, Io's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson. Worth it. And you...
How many times was Zeus in that lineage? Zeus, Poseidon, Memphis, Dionysus. Oops, incest. Okay. This is kind of into Zeus 2. Zeus 3. Danae. Okay, it's a different spelling. Andromeda. Yeah, 3 times. That's 3 times the Zeus. Wow, his family tree actually does circle. Wow. That is, Greece is the European Alabama confirmed. So, yeah, Zeus learned his lesson, which anyone who knows Zeus' story knows that it lasts a very short amount of time, because he then did it to multiple of her ancestors, but never to her, and she became a pharaoh, so there's more kids there, but also she literally got chased around as a bull to Egypt. Like, dear God, her story should be a movie. Like, literally, this is the Disney movie you want, starting after all of the other stuff. But basically, like, the cow that can speak, running from an immortal enemy placed under there by the gods to flee across multiple different landscapes. This is literally an old school Disney plot. And we're talking like Homeward Bound levels of talking animals here. Except that wasn't a Disney. I have no idea if Homeward Bound was a Disney movie or not. I have to find that out. It's actually going to be something I'm curious about now. But if it has been made into one, it should be. This is like the easiest pitch for Disney right now. Mostly because their current ideas are kind of like, what if something else looked human? I mean, let's go the other way. It's the old thing Disney did. What if human was something else? I'm talking myself into a plot for a Disney movie I have never actually seen and would actually want to watch for some reason. Huh. Yeah, that works. More importantly, you guys know the thing. Link below video. You've hit it up already? Great. There's 3 of them. You did that too? Oh, that's great. Because if you only did 1, I'd be like, why? And if you only did 2 of them, I'd also be like, well, a little better, but still, why? 3 of them? Nice. I'm just weird right now. I don't know why. It's probably over or under caffeination. I'm not sure which one. The only way to solve it is to make sure it's definitely over caffeination. I will definitely indulge in that. Again, links. Hit them up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.